close to 10 years ago, but still significant in today's society. And that album is KOD by J. Cole.
Literally one of my favorite albums. Actually, I think one of my favorite J. Cole albums, which I know he recently described as a side quest. So, no shade to you,
Insane
J.
take.
Cole.
Insane take.
Yeah.
And I don't know if surely he has to understand what this album did for a generation of people that have trauma that's built up or
Yeah.
have these vices that aren't really serving them. Because that's what I felt like this album was
Yeah.
was an opportunity for people to look within themselves to understand that the things that they think are serving them are not actually serving them.
Yeah. This was an album that actually made me think about, because I smoke all the time, but this is an album that actually made me think about smoking a lot and my kind of like codependency on it and what that meant for me at the time and what it still means for me to this day. Because still do it from time to time. So,
But that's what's so genius about this album too is it's not just about like drugs. And
no.
it's not even just about addiction. It's about like you said, the codependency of everything that we deal with as men. Like, what does success actually bring peace, or does it force you to look within yourself because
Yeah.
you don't have these other distractions? So like if I've got enough money in the bank to where I ain't got to worry about rent or things that normal people would deal with on a daily basis, does that give you an opportunity to like look within yourself and see what's actually wrong, what you're actually dependent on, what you're actually addicted to, like those types of things.
It would have to, right? Because what I hate to say it so dismissively, but it's like, what else do you have to do, right? Like,
Hmm.
I feel like one of the main reasons that people don't ever get the chance to truly work on themselves as individuals is because, to your point, right, we're focused and stressed about a million different things. How are my bills going to get paid? How do I put my kid through school? How do and shit, those are like big ticket items. Now I think people are just like, how do we get food on the table? Like, how do
Hmm.
I keep food in my kids' mouths and shit like that? So having an album, which is, it's funny because I think when he said side quest, actually, I don't know what he meant when he said that. Because like when I think of a side quest, I think of something that's like not obviously a part of the main story, the main quest, but was something that was still integral in you getting to the main quest. So like you needed to go on this little side venture in order to get to the ultimate point that you were trying to get to. And I often wonder, I'm like, is that how you feel about KOD? Because if the KOD is what led you to the fall off, albeit that's great, but like this was a great album. This was a really, really good fucking album.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you there, and I think that you and I have like a little bit of a different perspective on this album from I guess everybody else. Where I think you and I both think that the second half of this album is actually more impactful
Way more.
than the first half, and mm, it's kind of crazy because the second half of the album is mostly him internalizing the issues that are within his life and with around the people that are around him. And I think that you could use the first half of the album to kind of like give like a broad blanket across all of society. We're all worried about what's in the ATM.
Yeah.
Some of us, Photograph is like one of those songs that I think everybody kind of deals with, especially in this social media age where, you can fall in love with somebody over in just a picture, not knowing who they are at their core. I liked that theme and stuff like that. But the second half of this album felt really personal for probably Cole.
Yeah.
So
No, yeah, I would agree, especially with the sentiment that the second half is a little bit stronger than the first half. I say that because the second half is what I think always resonated with me the most. Like you
mhm.
listen to songs like Kevin's Heart, Once an Addict, Window Pane, and those songs just really, to your point, make you kind of like look back and internalize and really think about some of the shit that's going on in your life, or maybe things that you should have dealt with when you were younger and you haven't dealt with, or things that, right, like maybe you thought you dealt with and now they're rising back again. Um, yeah, the whole second half of this album is really good. Again, great album, but to your point, kind of a controversial take, right? Where it's like the second half was a little bit stronger to me. And again, I always think about Kevin's Heart kind of being where the second half of it starts. Um, and just that song in general, right? Like the play on words, because that was around the time that Kevin
Kevin Hart
Hart's
had
whole like fidelity or infidelity thing had started to come to the point. And
correct.
so, right, like hearing Cole talk about some of his struggles with like
And
being,
good on Kendrick or on not Kendrick. I'm sorry, Kevin. Or I'm sure Cole had to come to him and say like, "Hey, I want this song," you know, and for Kevin to look at that and be like, "Damn, dude, you kind of put me on blast." Like
yeah,
in a sense, you're like basically reopening this wound, that I feel like I'm trying to, get past. But allowing J. Cole to turn it into art and then even helping out with like the music video. It was an awesome music video too,
yeah,
that kind of tells the story of how Kevin got in that position in the first place. Just the amount of money and fame that you have has people that kind of flock towards you and are always looking to get something out of you.
yeah. It's just crazy to hear that from Cole's perspective because,
Mm-hmm.
right, like it's interesting to me that certain artists are able to keep shit under wraps so well until they let it come out in their artistry, right? Like I would have never guessed that he was one of the ones that was struggling. I think most men struggle with that though, like stepping out of your marriage or stepping out of your relationship or something to that extent. But it's not until like you see it in his artwork that you're just like, oh shit, motherfucker, you struggle with this too, or like, right, you have a wandering eye, or things of that nature. And so, yeah,
And just giving like his perspective on the Kevin Hart situation and giving it light rather than the darkness that everybody else, because
yeah,
it felt like a giant cloud around Kevin Hart at the time where, even in the music video they talk about like there's like like somebody on a radio station's like, oh my gosh, did you hear about the Kevin
hmm,
Hart thing? We're talking about this all day, and they're not saying anything positive. They're not trying to look at it from Kevin's perspective or anything like that. They're just kind of painting him with a broad brush that makes him look like a villain the whole time. And like J. Cole kind of comes out and says like, hey, this is normal,
yeah.
for you to feel this way or for you to, I deal with this too, type of thing. So I commend J. Cole for giving Kevin Hart the that
Which couldn't have been easy for Cole either, right? Like
mm,
putting your shit out there in the open like that.
yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's funny though because as I was driving down here, I was listening to the album again and just further solidifying that I feel like the second half is stronger. But I was like, what would I say is my like number one song from here? And my number one song I feel like constantly fluctuates because depending on how I feel at the time, right? Like, um, I know I always say Window Pane is such a strong song. And I think more so I just love the storytelling behind it. I love the fact that he included the little girl. I love the fact that he talks about her cousin. And right, we get the kind of like hear from her perspective what it's like growing up in her neighborhood. But I often think about when this album first came out in 2018, my friend Morgan calling me and being like, have you listened to the KOD album by J. Cole? And I was just like, yeah, I heard like the first half, but I haven't heard the second half. She's like, oh, dang it, you need to listen to the second half. There's a song on there that made me think of you. And I was like, really? What song? And it's called Once an Addict. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
like it's his song to his mom, and his mom was alcoholic in the song. And he talks about, having to deal with that and what it's like and how the stepdad kind of like walked out on her and had a baby with a whole nother woman. And just coming from somebody that like had a mom that struggled with addiction as well, I was just like, oh damn, this is a strong song. Like this one
Mm-hmm.
hits a little bit differently.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that these artists that make songs about their mothers always hits a little bit harder for us as men?
Because as any, if it's one thing we all share is we all have a mom. Like even
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have the greatest mom or you don't have like the like most ideal mother, we all have a mother, and all of us have some type of tie or what I would say is like kinsmanship towards our mom. Like even if your mom didn't raise you, if she kind of like just gave you up and abandoned you to an extent, like there's still like a familial tie there. And I've
Mm-hmm.
said this oftentimes too. Like that's the thing that sucks about being a dad, but you notice the difference in being a dad when you become a parent and you get to see like how moms operate versus how dads operate. It's almost like even from like infancy, kids know, right? Like yeah, your dad is great and they can be present and they can be all these things, but like not necessarily measure up to your mom. And I maybe measure up isn't the right word, but like
There's just that connection, like the fact that she birthed you.
she
You know what I
birthed you, she
mean?
carried you for 9
Mhm.
fucking months. Like you could only like eat the shit that she was eating for 9 months. Like there's something there. And I don't know the science behind it. And I've always said I'd be interested in seeing the science behind it, but like it's gotta be something that's scientific, right? Because
Mhm.
like I tell people, I'm like, no matter how great a relationship I feel like people have with their parents, like you always have this special type of relationship with your mom. Like
Mhm.
it, and most people have special relationships with their dad too, but like your relationship with your mom is just like different. Like I've never met someone that's like a woman or God. Oh, I tell my dad everything. Like my dad is my go-to, and I can confide in him and this, that, and the other. But like your mom is usually that person where it's just like, man, the whole fucking world's crashing around me today, and the first thing I thought to do was like pick up the phone, call my mom. And I think whether it's like Tupac with his song like Dear Mama or whatever, or freaking, Cole's Once an Addict, Kendrick's song from Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, where he talks about like his mom growing up in Chicago and stuff. Like there's just something, especially for young men or men in general, that just ties us to our fucking mothers. And like I remember when I heard Once an Addict, I was like, it I'm not gonna say wholly caused me to look at my mom in a different light, but it did make me start to kind of like question some of the pre- preconceived notions that I had about her, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, I just knew that you did this because of A and you did that because of B. And in reality, it was just like, well, no, I did this because, right, I was going through this form of addiction or, right. And your addiction can look so different. That's the thing that's crazy, right? Like, it's only recently now that we tie mental health and drug addiction to like one another, right? So that we'll say that just because someone's an addict doesn't necessarily, we're not like as quick to write them the fuck off as we would have been in like the 80s or the 90s, right? Like
Mhm.
back then you didn't have a problem, you were just a drug addict. Um, and I think that, listening to Cole and Once an Addict talk about his mother's struggle with alcohol, I was just like, damn, this isn't really different at all from my mom's struggle with
Mhm.
with drugs or whatever. And it's just something that like just reels you in, like because I think we all have like particular memories from our childhood, good or bad, where we've like stored them in a place, a safe space where you can either go back to them and see them or maybe never see them again, depending on how you feel about that memory. And this one for me, it was funny because I was like, as dark as a song as this is, I was like, it pulled out some really great memories. I remember just like thinking about like times my mom and I would go do stupid shit, or like the times where I would watch her try and cook and she couldn't cook to save her goddamn life. Um, so yeah, it's funny. I'm like, I know before we got on, I was just like, Once an Addict is probably my favorite song. And you were like, no, it's Window Pane. And I fluctuate between those two constantly because I'm just like, they're both just really good songs. Friends
Mhm.
is another song where I'm just like, I fluctuate between that one too, because I'm just like, there's so much just like knowledge that can be gleaned from this one fucking single.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, "Friends" is definitely my top track on the album. Listened to it during a time period where I struggled with you know smoking all the time, and feeling like that was my way of coping, and like that was my way of like kind of keeping friendships alive and stuff like
Hmm.
that, and starting to understand that that wasn't necessarily what was keeping the friendship alive. It was just something that we had in common, but with or without that, we didn't necessarily have to have the drug in order to make sure that we kept that relationship alive. So
Yeah.
like that song always had like a big impact on me. But I do like the way that in Once in an Attic, it feels like there was like he basically talks about there being this struggle between him and his mom, and like recognizing that she had like an addiction at like an early age, but also giving her that grace to understanding
Yeah.
why she had it. Like that's
Yeah.
like going back to what we were talking about with your mom and like that relationship that you have. Like I don't know that he would have been able to have that same give that same grace to like his dad in a
Yeah.
similar scenario. You know what I mean? Like us as men, we look at like our dad as like either somebody who doesn't make any mistakes, or you've made the smallest mistake, I can't forgive you for it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Type of thing. So
Yeah. Which it's funny because I'm like, not to derail the conversation. I've always wondered why that is. Like you give your mom so much grace, but then like with your father can make one small little mistake and you're like, you. I
Mhm.
never want to talk to him again. It's
I
over.
think we think that as men. I think the roles would be different if we were a woman. You know, women will have, I don't know, some women are pretty spiteful. Like, you know, they don't let shit go. So, but I think as men, like we're able to look at our dad, like because I think a lot of us grew up with dads that expected so much out of us, whether they were in our life or not in our life, or whether we had the best relationship with them or not. They're always expecting more out of you. You know, as a young man, you know,
Yeah.
growing up. So, you know, you probably have that thought process that it's either I'm not good enough or, you know, I'm too good for this guy. You know,
Yeah.
those are probably the two perspectives that you have. But yeah, kind of going off topic, but it in the same sense it's kind of staying on topic. It's like, you know, just Cole talking about what his family life was like growing up, you know. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people could probably relate to that.
Yeah. Because what is it? Is it brackets where he talks about like yeah, that's brackets where he uses the Richard Pryor at the
Mhm.
beginning of the skit or whatever, and you're just like, I make so much fucking money, it's crazy. And then he midway through the song he talks about giving money to his uncle after he's found success, and his uncle is like, well, it's pretty much not enough. I need half. I'm like, half? Nigga, half?
Well, it's not even. I don't even think he's talking about like his like an actual uncle. I think he's talking about Uncle Sam in that song.
Mm.
I think he's talking about like the government. Like
Duh.
you're actually thinking that
Yeah.
you're a millionaire, but you're not. Like
Yeah. Because Uncle Sam's
you
gonna
got a
take
million
half.
dollar check, but Uncle Sam's gonna take half that.
Damn. That completely went over my head.
Not. I mean, that's fine. I mean, that's what I don't. I'm not claiming that I'm right on that. You know, that's just what I took from it when I first heard that. I was like, yeah, but it could also happen the other way, where like as soon as you get success, and now the family members come out of the woodwork, you know, trying to get something out of you
Yeah.
because you've now gained success. So it could happen either way, but I think what he was talking about there is Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, what did you think of the KOD like actual song where he talks about how, because this was during a time period where Cole wouldn't let nobody on any of his on any of his projects. He's basically saying y'all ain't worthy to be on my shit. What do you think of that? Do you think he was justified in that thought process at the time?
I think so. I mean, how many artists are in the past have literally done albums where they didn't have any fucking features, or if they did have a feature, they didn't credit the artist who was featured on there. I'm thinking of Kanye on a couple of his albums, but like, did he need features on this?
Not necessarily, no. I don't think he needed the features. I think that this was more of a personal album for him. And it was
Mm,
after the For Your Eyes Only too, which wasn't really his album. It was more of like his homeboy's album that he put out for his homeboy. I think that this one felt probably pretty personal for him, like
yeah,
everything that he was struggling with. So it didn't make a whole lot of sense to have people, any features on it. But at the same time, like he came right out in KOD and said, like, maybe that was the ego talking, where he's just like, y'all ain't worthy to be on my shit. So, because
2018 though, who would have been worthy?
Kendrick,
Well, yeah, that, but I mean, Kendrick's not probably getting on a song with Cole. I mean,
at that time period, I think he definitely would have. Like, he just dropped 2017, he dropped Damn, where he
damn,
had
yeah,
no issues with having features on that album.
yeah,
I would have liked to have seen Cole on a feature on Damn, but it was a commercial album. So, but I don't think that I don't at that time period. I think if Cole would have came to Kendrick and been like, "Hey, dude, like you're the only one that I could see being on this album," and talking about a lot of the same shit that we heard in
yeah,
Mr.
that's
Morale and the
true.
Big Steppers. Like,
Very
so
true.
it's right on par with what I think Kendrick would have appreciated this album at the time. So,
Yeah,
but
that no, it's funny because I'm thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, that would have been a seamless kind of like duo right there, transition for
mhm.
Kendrick, because could have put something out on here, and then years later we come out with Mr. Around the Big Steppers, which to your point deals with a lot of the same topics: drug addiction, family, like fucking lifestyles, um, that we see in KOD.
Yeah, and one of the really cool things that I think both albums talk about a lot is like this social media era and like how we're all kind of dealing with that, but not really having the experience of like this happening before us. So we're all
Hmm.
dealing with this in real time and like how that's affecting us, and we may or may not even be privy to like how this is ultimately going to end up for each one of us. Like, you know, they say like male loneliness is at like an all-time high. A lot of guys are like falling in love through photographs and like,
Yeah.
not really going out into the dating scene, and like, you know, um how is that going to ultimately impact society? Like, and we're all kind of dealing with this in real time because that's new to all of us.
Yeah.
And I like how he talked about that within the photograph track.
Yeah.
But And then even on the cutoff too, like that was like another impactful track because it was more so talking about like, now that I've got this fame, now that I've got this notoriety, like all these people that are coming to me and saying like, hey, I need this, I want that,
Yeah.
and you having to have the insight to know that this isn't going to be forever if I just give it all away. Like I can only help out like a certain amount of people that want to help themselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't just give you $1 million and expect that that's going to get rid of all your pain and tribulations.
Which it's funny because we often hear the saying, right? It's like money doesn't buy happiness. And I've always said, I'm just like, that's bullshit. Because give me money and I wouldn't have to worry about bills and this, that, and the other. But you asked a question earlier where it was just like, well, if I had all the money and I didn't have to worry about bills and I didn't have to worry about, small, minute little shit, right? Where my next meal is going to come from. Would that actually make me focus on myself? Would that make me internalize and like have to look inward to see who it is that I truly am as an individual and a being and do some self reflection there?
Hmm.
And it's funny because I often think I'm like, no, not necessarily, but I know that other people would say, yeah, probably so. And I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways from this, from a aspect of talking about money or currency, right? Is like wealth did not solve his problems for him. Like
Hmm.
he obviously had to do other things once he reached the level of fame. And it's almost as if like not just wealth, but the fame itself exacerbated some of his problems, um, to a sense or to a degree. And it just makes me wonder. I'm like, I wonder if there are other artists that would like agree with him, agree with his standpoint on that, right? Of, yeah, I thought once I got the fame, I thought once I got the money, I thought once all this shit fell in my lap, I was going to be fine. But then I realized I was like, no, I still have to do some self reflection and worry about like who I am as an individual, the like being that I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that there's some artists that heard this album and said, like, damn, I got to change how I move. Like 21 Savage, I think is a great example of that.
Hmm.
I think this album, right after this album, is when I think that was Cole's first feature, where he accepted to do a feature with a lot with 21 Savage
Was
after
that?
this album.
Yeah.
So, you know, or what was it? Was it a lot
It was
or
a
was
lot.
there was a lot, and then there was also like a reference to features within Middle Child where he basically talks about he's like the sort of like the unk of this generation of rap. So like he's not the oldest guy in the room, but he's not the youngest guy in the room, and he's trying to
Yeah.
play the middle, and he's trying to like revere the guys that are older, and he's trying to teach the guys that are younger.
Yeah.
And I think some artists heard this album and they said, you know what, I got to change how I move. Other artists, like who he talks about in 1985 is like a lot of people said that he was talking, to like Lil Pump or
Well,
to like Lil Yachty, like these guys that didn't necessarily give J. Cole like the recognition that he felt like he deserved at the time. But he was also doing things right from a sense where he was staying relevant every time he dropped. People were going and listening to his music. People were, he was selling out world tours. So he was doing it right, and he was trying to big brother these younger guys, and basically tell them like, hey, this is how you should do it too, because this is how you're going to be able to last the longest. And 1985 for me was like one of those tracks where you saw like the genius of Cole, and I know that
yeah.
that's probably like one of his like you know, most I feel like people disrespected him on that track. Like when he put that out, people were like, "Dude, what the fuck is he trying to do?" He did that interview with like Lil Pump, where Lil Pump
I was about to
was
say, yeah.
sort of disrespecting him, like right to his face, and like not really listening to what J. Cole had to say. Same thing
Oh
with like,
shit! So I've never watched that interview. In all honesty, I know the interview like you're talking about, but I've never watched it.
yeah, like I didn't feel like Lil Pump like walked out of there being like, "Damn, dude, like I gotta hear what this man's saying and now apply that to how I move." But Lil Pump's where he's at now, and J.
Yeah, I was
Cole's
about to say, where's Little Pump now, though?
on Love and Hip Hop, just like he said. No, he's not on Love and Hip Hop, but he's not as relevant as what he was back in that time period. Because I remember Lil Pump. What was the song that he had? It was a Gucci Gang. That was
Little
his
Pump?
song, right?
Gucci
Lil,
Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang.
that was Lil Pump, right?
Oh shit!
I'm pretty sure it was Lil Pump. Fact check me in the comments. Let me know if if
I was
I'm
about to say
wrong or
'cause
not. But
I have no
I'm
clue.
pretty positive that Lil Pump did Gucci Gang, and that was like his one big song where everybody was listening to that at the same at that time period, which kind of felt weird because we saw what a talented artist could produce in 2018. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there was, Kendrick had already dropped To Pimp a Butterfly and Good Kid, Mad City. J. Cole had already dropped. And Kanye was still doing his fucking thing in
Or the
2017,
Life of
2018.
Pablo.
Yeah. So we saw what good artists could do, and then what like artists that are just having a moment, can do. And someone I'm not real big on Lil Yachty. I don't know how he's doing nowadays, but he was another one that was like saying like fuck J. Cole, and I don't really get that. But
Especially when he's just trying to help y'all. Like at least Cole had longevity in his career, like since what 2012, 2013. So like
you could argue 2009, like because when
2009,
when
yeah.
he first dropped to like his first like mixtape, like that was I remember I wasn't privy to his mixtape back that early, but I did listen to Cole pretty early on, and I was just like, God damn, dude. Once I heard that mixtape, I was like, oh, dude, there's no no way this guy wasn't gonna fucking make it big.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't know, man.
He's a great artist. And again, like this is hands down one of my favorite albums.
Yeah,
Because
and
I
it all
remember how much shit it got after
yeah.
it dropped. Because this was after For Your Eyes Only, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I just remember, like, I wasn't a big fan of For Your Eyes Only. I didn't think it was terrible, but I also like it didn't just hit with me. And then KOD dropped. Yeah, I was just like, oh shit. Because I remember arguing with Yaki about For Your Eyes Only. And
It's so good.
and yeah, he was like, this is such a great album. And I was like, is it though? Like after 2014 Hill 4's Hill Drive, this isn't it's just not for me.
It felt like more of a raw album, like
Mhm.
in comparison to like KOD or 2014 Forest Hills Drive, but still super impactful. Like all the themes within that album are, super impactful. Like if something were to happen to you and I was able to produce like a piece of artwork that like
Yeah.
just like encapsulates your entire life and like what
Yeah.
you meant to me and everything like that, that to me is like one of the most beautiful things you could do for like a friend. And he was able to do that, and he did it in my opinion, a perfect way. So
No, agreed.
but as good as Cole is, dude, I don't feel like he gets the recognition he deserves, even from me sometimes, where I'm like, I sort of forget and like how great he is until he drops something, and then I'm like, damn, dude, like,
But I wonder, is that by like choice? You think? Like, do you think Cole wants to be like this big? Like, I look at him. I think I'm like, I don't. You don't strike me as a person who wanted the commercial success, in a sense of like what Drake has, right? Or even commercial success in what Kanye has, right? Like their names alone can be put on a building, and you know who the fuck that is, right? Like to me, Cole is someone who's always just kind of like Kendrick in a sense. Like I'm here to make music. If y'all
mhm.
vibe with it, y'all vibe with it. If y'all don't vibe with it, I understand, whatever. But like I know how good I am, so at the end of the day, when I drop some shit, y'all gonna listen. But I don't get the sense that he necessarily cares about the recognition,
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
even if it's
he's
deserved. Because like
yeah.
I tell you all the time, every time I pull up Cole, I'm shocked. I'm just like, how have you only won one fucking Grammy? Like this doesn't make
It
sense
wasn't
to
even
me.
his either.
And it
Like
wasn't
it's
his. It was for a lot. It was 21
hmm
Savages, right? But because he was featured on it, he gets one technically. But I'm just like, all of the fucking artwork, it's kind of like, and not to put emphasis on awards, but again, because those things come from your peers, I'm just like, y'all mean to tell me between all of this nigga's fucking work that he's released, y'all haven't thought him worthy enough to give him one just by himself for one single, one record, one fucking album, nothing that he's produced, y'all didn't think was worthy of getting one of those little golden statues for? And
but when you look at his music, like like out of all of his tracks, like what is probably the most well known J. Cole track? For me, I think it's No Role Models. I think everybody has heard
easily,
No Role Models at one point in time. Is that a track that's gonna win a Grammy? Probably not. Like it's I'm not trying to discount the work that he's done. I'm discounting the Grammy, like what that actually means, because I think the Cole has put out work that I'm glad that it doesn't have a Grammy attached to it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because like that may have changed his perspective on how he needs to put out music, and if he
yeah,
actually always cared about the Grammys or the awards and stuff like that, maybe he would make music that's tailored to that rather than the work that he's actually put out. Like this is an album where touches on like a lot of this album you could argue has probably healed a lot of people
yeah,
just through hearing it, just like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. It was one of those albums. It was like when you heard it you were like, damn, there's things that I need to change within my life, and like this album really brought that to the forefront of my life and like and my thought. So you know I don't want this to be like a commercial album that's just given a bunch of awards, because you know I just think that it would change the direction in which he tries to put out music.
I could see that. I think though when you're an artist, I think when you're an artist like J. Cole though, it's the same way with Kendrick Lamar to me, right? Like you're not doing it for the awards. You do it and then the awards come.
Mhm.
And I guess for me, that's where I'm just like, Kendrick does it and y'all love him. Like he's a Grammy darling for whatever reason. Like, but Cole does it in a very similar form and fashion to me, but gets no recognition. Like he's lucky if he gets nominated, then gets nominated, but then watches people like fucking Cardi B or Tyler the Creator, like, and that's shit on. I'm not shitting on those artists; they're great in their own right. But like, again, there's levels to this, and like he's levels above many of those artists that I can name that have gotten these little golden statues. So that's where I'm like,
That's why I put less value on those golden
yeah,
statues, though, because there's industry plants that have been given
yeah,
an award rather than an award that's been earned.
yeah,
Because if it was just all about earning and like who had the most impact or who had the best bars, like I mean, what is it that we value within hip hop or rap? Like to me, it's always been about the bars. Like if you can go
lyricism,
out there and you can be a lyricist, you're gonna win over real fans. But then you got people like you just mentioned, Cardi B, or even like Iggy Azalea, who I think won an award over Cole
yeah,
for 2014 Forest Hills Drive. How the fuck is she winning over him when he's put out this piece of art? So like, I don't hold the Grammys or really any awards as highly as what probably some of these artists do, but that's probably where I relate with Cole a little bit more
yeah,
than other artists.
yeah. Because I'm with you. He doesn't give a damn. Could
Hmm.
care less.
Yeah, but yeah, this will probably be an album that I continue to listen to, and hopefully, you know, someday when I have kids, hopefully, they don't have to go through all the same themes and issues that he does. But this would probably be an album that if I recognize that within any of my friends or family, that I would point them towards and just be like, hey, you should go
Yeah,
take a listen to this.
yeah, same. It's a great album
Hmm.
with some hard hitting shit in it.
Absolutely. But you got anything else on this one?
On KOD, no man, and the album cover too, like the fucking
The
photo
artwork.
art for the album
Hmm.
album cover is just tremendous. Like I love it.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. Well, thank you for tuning in to a probably a shorter episode. It doesn't mean that we don't want to give J. Cole his flowers, but I think this album is better heard than talked about. Um, and definitely encourage everybody to go give it a listen if you haven't already.
Same.